Hi, welcome to the MSDW Podcast. I'm Jason Gumpert, editor at msdynamicsworld.com. This week, we are bringing back the Week in Review. It's a news roundup where we'll be looking at CSP standards, the evolution of the Dynamics 365 Business Central offering, getting creative with Microsoft Flow, partner challenges, mergers, and more. Joining me this week is Eamon Earls. He's our assistant editor. If you haven't met him, you probably haven't heard from him, but you've seen his writing on the site. He's been writing regularly for us for some time. And Eamon, welcome. Thanks for joining me on the podcast today.
Thanks very much, Jason.
And we are going to leap right into it. So first up, we had a report on changes to the direct or Tier 1 CSP program. There's going to be new costs and new performance standards. This was one that we reported on thanks to a little bit of help from some folks in the partner channel who raised our visibility on this. If you're in the direct CSP program as a partner, that means you sell things like Dynamics 365 directly to customers as opposed to through an indirect model, which is the Tier 2 model. There's going to be a new set of costs associated with being a Tier 1 CSP, including a new support contract, a couple of support contracts that these partners are going to have to buy from Microsoft. The lowest priced one is $15K, and it's actually a little less than that in some emerging market countries. There's also there's a suggestion of other performance thresholds. None of them are specific yet, but the signal there, according to people who talked to me for the article, is that Microsoft is raising that bar. They want to see higher performance Tier 1 CSPs, and they want to make sure that I think the program is fairly high performance and rigorous. For those who aren't maybe reaching those standards in terms of some sort of level of revenue, even if it hasn't been spelled out yet, or in terms of the kind of IP that they offer along with Microsoft solutions, they probably want to have those companies either move over to the Tier 2 model and partner with an indirect CSP who tends to be like a bigger distributor, or find some other way, or up their game and either merge or invest greater amounts of money and invest greater resources in being a Tier 1. I think my take on it was that this is probably good news for those Tier 2s, those indirect CSPs who are really trying to make the case for not going it alone. If you're a Microsoft partner selling D365 and those other products, don't sell directly, sell through, their messages, don't sell directly, enjoy the benefits of working in a larger network with less overhead and still maintain your own independence to some extent. And I think they see this as more signs that that's really what Microsoft would like to see the majority of its partners do. It is telling that most of the input I got, or sort of perspective I got, came from Tier 2 partners who obviously watched the stuff very closely and interpreted these changes for the Tier 1s in this way. Something to continue watching, because I don't think all those details are out. With the Inspire event coming up in just less than 2 months, I would guess this will be one of the topics of conversation for that event, especially since some of the rules and some of the activities of the CSP program appear to be also kind of put on sort of temporary hold until that event and the beginning of the Microsoft Fiscal 18 starts up.
All right, next up, Microsoft updates nav partners on Dynamics 365 Business Central rollout, locales, licensing, web client, and more.
Right, so this was, I would say, kind of a small series of bits of updated information. I would not call this a major announcement. I would not call this sort of an official change of any sort. But based on some reporting done by the Microsoft partner firm Simplinova at a recent event that Microsoft was present at. Just a few updates on, I think, the timing of when some of the locale support is coming in July and beyond, and I think also promised to give further guidance on other countries beyond July 2018. There was a little bit of talk about how the license scenarios for Business Central are going to shake out, the on-premise versus the SaaS, Microsoft hosted versus perhaps different licensing for private hosting. And then there was some talk about support for web client versus Microsoft Windows client for Business Central on-prem in the future. We'll have to see what happens there. It was a little unclear as we kind of dove into it, and we couldn't really confirm some of those details. But yeah, just a sign that that Microsoft's continuing to sort of update partners on what's coming with Business Central. And I think we'll get into this a little more coming up. But clearly, partners especially are very interested to know how to plan for Business Central as the successor to Nav, and the Nav brand starts to ceases to get updates, and Business Central takes over going forward.
We also had a great contribution from one of our contributors, Ludwig Reinhard, who went into depth with sort of the topic of work less, do more in Microsoft Dynamics 365 finance and operations using Flow and PowerApps. And his piece was very, very in-depth and had a lot of great information in it. One of the things that he touched on is the traditional process of sending out information to customers, which was often very, very manual, even with tools such as Microsoft Word templates. And there tended to be a lot of sort of missing links to customer data tracked in ERP systems. And so many people did rely on Word templates, retrieving customer information from ERP systems and then storing that information temporarily in Excel files. So often this Excel file was then used as the data source for the entire Word template to create serial letters and then send these notices out to customers via postal mail. However, Reinhard did a really good job of explaining how this process has been updated today using Flow and PowerApps, beginning with Word templates as in the previous version, but now saved in a cloud-based archive that PowerApps can retrieve and make available through Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. So it's a very, very interesting piece.
Yeah, it's another example of how some, especially sort of experts in the field and in the partner channel, and probably with customers too, are taking a very hands-on approach, I think, to using Flow and PowerApps in conjunction with the latest Dynamics solutions in very creative ways, and ways that I think Microsoft's got to be very happy about, because these are in this particular case, I thought Ludwig identified a very specific, high value, but also very discreet business case, and applied the technology to it in a way that seems quite effective. And I would just say that the piece has generated a lot of interest from our readers, so I think it definitely resonated.
Now that we've covered some of the Dynamics product news, let's move on and talk about some of the ISV and partner channel news.
All right. So yeah, the first one we had there was a piece by Stuart Goldwater on growing a Dynamics practice and the challenges of growing a Dynamics practice. Really kind of a nice introspective piece from Stuart. He's the co-founder and director at Pragmatic IQ Solutions. Pragmatic Solutions with a Q at the end of it. I always appreciate when folks offer a little bit of candid perspective on their own businesses and the challenges that they see among themselves and their peers. It's not the first time we've heard from partners on some of the impact of the changing landscape in the Microsoft ecosystem, but this was another good one. I think some of the concerns he mentioned include talent and nurturing talent, and also staying up to date with the technology changes that Microsoft is pushing out there as a partner. You have a lot of different responsibilities and needs to meet, including your customers, and who are often maybe working on a solution that they adopted a year ago or selected a year ago, and then you have Microsoft just pumping out new releases very, very quickly. so you're sort of pulled in many directions, and I think he kind of reflected that. I think he also touched on something that I know we're going to hear more about in the near future, which is how partners are going to navigate the continuing march towards SaaS, the SaaS business model for them, with fewer and fewer companies electing to go with perpetual licenses and adopting a subscription model. It's really going to start putting pressure on companies that had originally been tooled up to work in sort of the perpetual license model, and I think more and more partners are seeing that become a real risk. So worth a read. I mean, it's very, like I said, candid, insightful, and certainly not the last time we'll hear about some of these challenges through our contributors and through our readers.
Jason, a few weeks ago, you wrote about the merger of 360 Vertical Solutions and SAGlobal, growing the Microsoft partners' service industry reach. What was your take on that story?
So that was a really interesting one for me personally. There's obviously no shortage of sort of mergers and acquisitions in the Dynamics channel these days. This one in particular, between SAGlobal, who has a lot of and 360 Vertical Solutions, I think is exactly the kind of deal that Microsoft loves to see. I think, I didn't actually talk to them, but from everything I know about the one commercial partner model and Microsoft's sort of vision for the channel, these are companies that brought together not only expertise but IP in particular verticals that are focused around project service and field service, and I think are doing it in a very strategic way. So in talking to a couple of representatives, one from SAGlobal, one from 360 Vertical Solutions, about just after the deal was announced, I think they have a very sort of clear vision of why this merger is going to work well for them, in terms of, from one side, 360 Vertical Solutions, which has a lot of IP expertise and R&D expertise, and SAGlobal, which has a lot of project execution in the field in the project service realm, with a lot, and they both have sort of very specific sort of verticals within the project services industry, more globally. So they're bringing together sort of vertical and micro vertical expertise, but they're also bringing together sort of R&D expertise and what's the term? Sort of how to take expertise and turn it into a sellable ISV solution. So I think from both sides, they're going to complement each other well, and they certainly sounded like they were, to me anyway, that they're well aligned with Microsoft's one commercial partner vision. So I expect that'll. If you were going to pick an example of a well-positioned merger, I think this was one of them, from my impression of what they're doing. So yeah, I thought it's a few weeks back now, but certainly worth a read.
I also covered some news, not so much about a merger, but rather a product launch and a new collaboration from Affinio, a Halifax, Nova Scotia-based company that's launched integrated audience analysis, an offering in collaboration with Microsoft Global Consumer Goods and Retail Solutions team. And it was a very interesting release. It sort of touches on the sort of emerging facet or intersection, I guess, between machine learning, AI, and the sort of intersection of content marketing with those sort of emerging technologies. So it was an interesting glimpse of another company working, sort of on the ground level with digital transformation.
Yeah, I think an important. I think for Microsoft, it's always important when they're able to add partners like this and get them sort of hooked into AppSource, which obviously Microsoft's sort of solution marketplace, and a solution like this seems like it's strategic because of its industry focus and the fact that it does use some pretty cool technology in the process.
We also had some great thought leadership throughout the past month and a half. One example of that was a piece from two experts from Australia, both from Avanade, Ismail Kutafan and Ben Lean, who contributed a great piece to us on artificial intelligence and its role in solving the ERP complexity conundrum.
Yeah,
We,
these are both big pieces. Sorry to cut you off there.
oh no.
Um, I won't go into too much detail. They're both. I like both of these. I would invite you to take a look at either one on, like you said on Dynamics 365 finance and operations and service industries, or the role of AI with ERP. I think again, this is not the last time we're going to hear about these themes, but certainly nice to see some folks in this space from Avanade starting to tackle them and put them into context.
We also had some really good contributions from other folks focused on Microsoft Dynamics Nav upgrade projects and the signs of when they should be automated, as well as some MVP profiles. One of Andrew Lai from Australia, who got involved with Microsoft Technologies in 1997 and loves the D365 CRM platform, as well as thoughts from Microsoft MVP Michael Ox, who looks to the future of customer relationships software and attempts to sort of see the future of that before anyone else in the context of new technology solutions using Dynamics 365.
Yeah, always fun to get to learn a little more about some of these folks who are having an impact in the community. Both of these profiles were focused on sort of newer MVPs, which is always great to see. And I think we'll probably have. I think as we're recording this, we're coming into June here, so that probably means with a new month ticking over, we could very well see some new MVPs once again. Certainly, if some folks I've had my eye on who I think are deserving of it, and I'm always interested to see when who gets recognized and when, because like I tend to say a lot, I think the MVP program is one of the best things Microsoft chose to do years ago to really sort of solidify the strength of this community. So yeah, great pieces. All right, Eamon. So let's look ahead just a bit. What do you have planned in the next week ahead?
Well, one of the most exciting pieces I'm looking forward to in the next week is a preview of the Directions North America event and what it means for partners.
All right, great. For myself, I'm looking in a couple different directions. I think we will hopefully have a piece from a new contributor looking at Agile and Scrum methodology, which should be great. I'm also looking at, in the near future, we mentioned Flow and a great piece by Ludwig Reinhardt earlier, using Flow in a very strategic way, or I guess maybe a very tactical way, but there's a lot more use cases out there, and I've really been impressed with how many I've been seeing. I hope to sort of grab onto more of those and look at some of those more deeply too, because if I was going to pick a trend right now, I think that's the excitement around Flow use cases is certainly one of those things that has people's attention right now. All right, well, let's start to wrap up. Eamon, thank you so much for joining me this time. We'll have to do it again for another news roundup at some point in the near future.
Definitely, Jason. I look forward to it.
All right. Until next time, I'm Jason Gumpert.
And I'm Eamon Mcarthy Earls.
All right. And thanks for joining us on the MSDW Podcast.